Oh, it didn't call this me, right? It didn't call me.
What?
That's right. Oh, yeah?
And yes, and
Yeah?
hmm,
Me, didn't,
I didn't call your brother. No.
not me. Did you try?
Hmm?
Oh, so it didn't work maybe. Okay, Hilchas Tefillin, have I say.
Okay.
Which page?
So, sorry.
Let's take a look at the Talmud Zion. Yeah, I think we are holding.
Lamed. Stop at Lamed.
Yeah, Siman Lamed, page Sadik Vav. Siman Lamed, Zman Hanakoson, Boy Hey Sifr. When is the time for putting on tefillin? Sif Aleph Laila Zman Tefillin Hu Min HaTorah. There is a
Sound
machloek
is off. The
between him
sound is off.
about when is the Zman for tefillin. Is nighttime a Zman for tefillin or no? Everyone agrees it's Shabbos and Yom
Hello, I
Tov
can't hear
time
you.
for.
The sound is off. The sound is
Hello?
off.
I can't hear.
Maybe
No.
Paris knows how to do it, but I can't hear a word.
I'm here.
Is he saying something? I can't hear him. So,
No. No.
um,
He's
Okay,
saying
now
the
it's
sound is off.
working now.
That's his phone.
maybe it's not on mute. So, some Rishonim hold that nighttime is a time for tefillin. Min HaTorah, you can put on tefillin at night. However, others hold that no. Min HaTorah, it's not a time of tefillin. So Alter Rebbe explains, we paskin that Laila's man tefillin hu min HaTorah. We paskin like the opinion that nighttime is a zman for tefillin. There is a pasuk in the Torah that says you should keep this chukah, this mitzvah, l'me'ada in its time, miyamim mima, day by day. Shemashma yamim v'loy leilis. Ein hakosim medaber b'chukas hatfilin. Al chukas hapesach shemalamayla vadatas avoda hazois. When we have a siddur, we say Kaddish. He called the fire. So we say the parsha of Kaddish Yikol B'Chayr, say like this. And in Parshas Boy, yeah? Kaddish Yikol B'Chayr, Kol Peter Rechem Adam Hema. That's the beginning. Then we go. Oh, we have the second parsha, V'Hoya Kiviyacha. V'Hoya Kiviyacha, Hashem will bring you, it's a Kanani. You should do this avoida, Shivas Yom Teichel Matzes, Matzes Ya'achel Shivas Yomim, Nigada Telvincha Bayemahu, Bavur Zeh Asa Hashem Li B'Tzeisim Mitzray. Then the pasuk continues and says, V'haya l'cha la'ois al yadcha, u'lezikarein vein enechel. The next pasuk, V'shamarta es achuka hazois, l'me'ada miyamim yamima. What is this chukah that the Torah is referring to? Which chukah should be done by the day? So some understand, some Rishonim, it's referring to what it says in the pasuk before. Is only by day. Shemart is chukah means that tefillin should only be miyama yamima, day by day, but not by night. However, others say, Ein HaKosav, like the Alter Rebbe writes, Ein HaKosav medaber b'chukas HaTefillin, Al b'chukas ha-pesach shem l'mayla v'adat avodah zos. Others say no. The mitzvah is referring to the mitzvah of Carbon Pesach. So the machloek is what the pasuk means. So the way we learn that it means talking about the Carbon Pesach, we have no pasuk that tells us that you're not allowed to put on tefillin by night. There's no pasuk. So, Aval Chachamim Osru Laniach Tefillin Balayla. Chachamim said you should not wear tefillin by night. Hey Shuzman Shina, because the time when people sleep. Vigzeda Shema Yishkach Yisham Behem. Maybe you're going to forget and sleep in them. Well, also Lishin the tefillin. You're not allowed to sleep in tefillin.
Mom sleeping. Hold on. Silly. The whole apparatus.
Good question.
Or you're saying smoke like sleeping in the middle of learning.
You know, those days, let's remember, they're wearing tefillin day and night.
Yeah.
According to the Shita, Minat Torah, you wear tefillin at night. You're wearing all the time. You get tired at night. Could be you'll forget to take it off. You'll fall asleep in it. Tired. Maybe didn't have such big tefillin as our tefillin, and small tefillin.
Very uncomfortable.
And how tired you are. So Chachamim said, don't wear tefillin by night. Not because min ha-Torah it's not the time. Because midrabanan it's not the right time. L'chein, therefore, we're middle sif aleph. Af la'acher she'ola omad ha-shacher shu yoim l'chol ha-mitzvahs ha-amuras b'Torah. Also lo hanichan ha-shetegia eis kima mishina l'roi b'nei adam. When is the time for tefillin? When you look on the calendar in the luach, it says, or you have on your phone, it says when is the time of tefillin? It says mishayakir. That's when the time you should put on tefillin. Why mishayakir? Any mitzvah in the Torah, b'diavad, it's okay to do it mishayala amad hashacher when it's dawn. It's day. Because tefillin is not associated with day or night. It's associated with a time of when you're up or a time when you sleep.
At 5 a.m.
So after Amad HaShachar, 5 a.m. now, it's Mishiyakir?
Yeah.
So dawn is not a time, because since most people are still asleep, you're not allowed to put on tefillin when it hits dawn. You have to wait, the Hainu at Shiyar Hayoim B'chdei Shiyire Es Chavere B'richuk Dalar Ames the Sefer. Richuk Dalar Ames B'reshus V'yakirenu. So you have to wait until Mishiyakir, when you recognize your friend in the street, at a distance of Dalar Am. Mishiyakir means recognize. When it's light enough outside that you're able to recognize your chaver, who's standing at a distance from you, from 8 feet away, 6 feet away. If you know him very well, you'll recognize him even from a further distance. You don't know him at all. You won't recognize him even when he's very close. So this span Mishiyakir is not because of something unique about Mishiyakir, because that's the time frame when most people are getting up. That's why it's Zman Tefillin. Before that, we're worried still that maybe you fall asleep with your tefillin on.
But you don't tell him good morning. Tell him Shafrat Kavah.
Not for the Maratav. Base. If he put on tefillin before says hakichavim, b'chashcha olav, and it became dark, afil hin olav kol alayla mutter. Even if you wear your tefillin on a whole night, it's okay. I mean, you're not allowed to put on tefillin at night. That was the gzeira. But if the tefillin are already on you, you can leave it on you. You can leave it. Yeah. So once it's on, it could stay on.
The shlichim doesn't put it at night for people?
No.
No,
also-
no.
Then they have to skate out after 4 o'clock. But it's so nice that it's doing on
Okay. Still daytime. It's a shayla about davening, but not about tefillin. They might in Cain halacha lamaisa. Shema yavoyu lanicha lechatchila balayla. Lechatchila, you don't tell people to do this. We don't tell them put it on before it says, and now you can keep it on the whole night. Because lechatchila, then people will start doing it at night. Chain leyasa kain al benoy lo benatzi v'loy berabim. Shemita loy mishul damicha lechatchila balayla. Kain beis hamedrash should be yoyshiv beis hamedrash in locha shiyitu. You can do this either privately by yourself, you're at home, you can leave it tefillin on. Or you're in the Beis HaMedrash. There's Beis HaKnesses and Beis HaMedrash. Beis HaMedrash is where the Talmidei Chachamim were. The Talmidei Chachamim were in the Beis Medrash. So even in the Beis Medrash, they know the halacha. So they're not going to be convinced that you're allowed to wear tefillin, put on tefillin chatchila at night. So those are the scenarios that allow you to put it on before night and keep it on at night. Mutter kain. What happens if someone did not have a place to put his tefillin away? To keep them in a secure place. So then, if you didn't take off your tefillin, we tell you you're allowed to keep it on because you don't have a secure place to put it. You have to tell the people that are seeing you do this, I'm doing this because I need to keep it secure. I don't have anywhere to put it. I just want to wear my tefillin. You're not allowed to put it on at night in order to safeguard the tefillin.
But we're not worried that he's going to fall asleep with it.
These are unique situations. We give the heter in unique situations. You have it's not no place to put it. In this certain cases, we'll say the Chachamim say that in those areas we're not putting our gezerah. It's only a gezerah. Certain cases we don't put our gezerah. Now, before we said that if you're wearing the tefillin and you don't have a place to keep it, we tell you you're allowed to keep it on. But what happens if he wasn't wearing it and he wants to put it on because he has nowhere to put his tefillin? He wants to wear it. So that we say no. If you're not wearing it yet, don't put it on to keep it on after Pesach Yechavim because you want to safeguard your tefillin. If you already have it on, we tell you you're allowed to keep it on the Shmira. It's all because we're dealing here with a Gzeira. Siv Gimel. Someone wants to go traveling early morning before dawn. L'chora he means sheyard hayoim. Yoyim means sheyaker. Yeah. I'm looking back now, and actually the word is yard hayoim means already light. So it's lit up for dawn already. There's some, but it's very shvat. We used early in the ending of Aleph when we described Mishiyaker. We said Ainu Achi Yard Hayoim. So Mishiyaker is the Yard Hayoim. Right, correct. Good harder. You could put it on before you leave. Shagiyaz Manan, when it comes the time for tefillin of Mishiyaker, Yemashish Behen Yivarif.
They put it on without a book.
Yeah, because it's not as man. And then you could feel your tefillin, put your hand on it, make a bracha. In this case, that you got up early to go travel, we're not concerned that you're going to fall asleep in the tefillin. What is this talking about when you're going with your feet? You can't fall asleep. But if you're in a wagon, you woke up early, you're probably going to fall asleep. So therefore, you're riding or you're in a wagon, you shouldn't put on tefillin before. What about driving a car?
Simply like that.
If you're driving, you can't
If you're
fall
the
asleep.
passenger, it's the same idea like a car, but if you're the driver,
So why did it say? It's interesting. It says Roichev or Yoshev Bekarin. Roichev means the rider of the
horse.
So how he can't fall asleep? He's riding the horse. What's pshat? The horse will take you. Okay, self-driving. Tesla. So it's everything's good. So the Tesla is going to be a problem even if you're in the driver's seat. It's going to be a problem because you could fall asleep.
Yeah, with the full time.
You're not relying on it, Dexter. Hayibaba derech sivdala. Hayibaba derech utfilin b'reishei v'shakal v'chama. You're traveling and you had tefillin on, and now it became sunset. He describes sunset over here as nightfall. You don't want to take it off and carry it in your hand. Maybe it's going to fall out of your hands. You put your hands on your tefillin till you come home, because those that see, they will say, "Oh, you're allowed to wear tefillin by night."
They didn't have actual tefillin that time.
Seems like they didn't
They
have,
carried it with
it
them.
wasn't
Yeah,
a big thing, the bag.
they wore tefillin the whole day, so they didn't need a bag for the.
Oh, sure. But not everybody wear the whole pants.
The Kiddush Allah better Shabbos Yom She'in's man tefillin. What happens? You're in Beis Medrash learning. It becomes Shabbos or Yom Tov, which is definitely not the Zman tefillin. The holiday is it's not the Zman tefillin. V'ni yochel lachlei tzoniach sham tefillin Beis Medrash shevasad she'ein makim mishtamer. They used to have the Beis Medrash out in the field. It was a place at night. It was not secure. You can't leave your tefillin there. So you don't want to take it off and leave it there. So what should you do? You walk home and put your hands on your tefillin and walk home at Shiyabala Bais Beisai. Shemashum Zayin tefillin intiru lechnisan derech malbush le'ir. Because of a bezayin for the tefillin, that the tefillin can get stolen.
Why?
In the Beis Medrash, you're allowed to wear it on Shabbos. I am carrying. I'm carrying? No. You're wearing a derech malbush. You wear it like you normally wear it. Derech malbush le'ir.
Why the saying Maniach Yado Alehem? Maniach Yado Alehem, they put it at the top. You have to say,
Cover it, so
hold
people
them.
shouldn't see it.
You have to say,
You can't
look,
carry it Shabbos.
and how you put the tefillin here and put your head up?
No, I'm here like this. Walk
Cover
like
it,
this.
Yeah.
Oh,
They should, yeah, anyway.
People see that you're not wearing tefillin. You're just doing this because you need to get somewhere. But you're not putting on tefillin because you think that Shabbos and Yom Tov are fine for tefillin. When you enter into the wall of the city, those days they had wall around the city. When you enter into the wall, you have a house there near the wall that you can secure, put your tefillin there, take it off and leave it there. Don't walk around the city more with it. In the weekday, whenever it might be at night, Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's not as man tefillin, min haTorah or midrabanan. We don't want you walking around with tefillin, giving the impression this is okay behavior. You find many times throughout halacha, we are concerned with what we had before the term mipnei haroyin, for those that see. We are concerned that people learn from your action things.
Yeah, we have it on the Delta Canyon. You don't want to do stuff out.
Right? Yeah. We're careful mipnei haroyin. Sifhei, misha shachach v'iniach tefillin kol hayoyim. What happens if someone forgot to put on tefillin the whole day? And v'nisker acher shespalol tfilas arvus b'yidei. He forgot after he davened an early ma'ariv.
So,
He davened an early ma'ariv, which was common then. And he's now davening. Now he chap. Oi, I didn't put on tefillin today. Yesh mi she'omer she'asu lo le'hanichad oz v'shekvar asoy zan zel laila. Some say you're not allowed to put tefillin on then, because you made this time Laila for you by you davening ma'ariv. You're treating this time as ma'ariv, even though it's daylight outside. But you daven ma'ariv after Plaga Mincha means I consider this Laila. So you can't wear tefillin.
how about Shachrit? You did that?
I don't know.
You did Marif Shnai.
Maybe he davened, but without tefillin, he didn't have tefillin on. Mizman shchiva b'kriya shema b'tefillah shel arvis.
Which is the Rabbanan. Like this last week, from the Isaac.
That's what he says. Look what he says. So some say you're not allowed to do this. Mizman shchiva b'kriya shema b'tefillah shel arvis. Through saying kriya shema. Remember, by the way, when you say kriya shema early, you're saying that b'shach b'cha, the zman shechiva is now. And you're davening ma'ariv also. By those two actions, you're making a statement that now is nighttime. So how are you going to go now and wear tefillin? Now you're going back and saying, no, I consider it daytime. These are two leniencies. If you're going to put on tefillin after night, you're doing two opposing leniencies. You're saying, I could daven ma'ariv early, normally we daven later. Daven ma'ariv early because I want to consider this time nightfall. Then I want to put on tefillin now and consider it day. Is it day or is it night by you? You can't always pick and choose the way you like to define things. So this sheet holds, it's also to put on tefillin. If you didn't daven yet, even though everyone else davened ma'ariv early, it's not a problem as long as you personally don't contradict yourself. Yesh mi shechoylik al zeh. Some are choylik on this opinion, and they hold that no, you should put on tefillin. It's best to be concerned for this second opinion and to put on tefillin, not to lose the chance to put on tefillin after night. Now, what's the machlokes about over here? We learned very well what the first opinion held. Makes sense. How could you say it's night on one hand? How could you say it's day on one? You have to pick and choose. But Lamaisa, the other sheet says no, you're allowed to put on tefillin. What's the reason why you're allowed to put on tefillin during that time? So this shita is based on something that says, not here, it talks about in Hilchas Nida, that if a woman needs to make certain bedikas during the day, and she davened Ma'ariv already, so now it's nightfall, does she lose her chance to make these bedikas? You never know. Some are davening more than the men. So
I know about chocolate. I know about chocolate, but I don't know.
No, you know stuff here?
but Friday night, some women daven at home, they daven with the siddur. Friday night. So the Maisa over there, the Shach says, the Yerdeya, he says that the mitzvah of Nida is connected to the physical daytime. Even though she davened Ma'ariv, or she was Mekabel Shabbos early, that does not create it to be physically day. It's not physically day, it's daylight outside. The sun is shining. When you made daven Ma'ariv, you made it halachically night. But for those mitzvahs that require physical daylight, it doesn't make a difference whether you consider it night or day. It's about what is it an actuality. So therefore, your davening Ma'ariv is not going to change the fact it's no connection to mitzvahs tefillin. Your davening Ma'ariv means that now you daven Ma'ariv, and for Ma'ariv purposes, it's nightfall for you. And for certain mitzvahs, yes, your Ma'ariv affects that you consider it night. But when it comes to the mitzvah of tefillin, whether you daven Ma'ariv or not, it's not going to change the ability that you should be able to now put on tefillin. This is the second opinion. The Alter Rebbe says, when you have a machlokes like this, whether you should put on tefillin or not, and the second opinion says you could still put on tefillin, do it. It's best to be choishish to the second opinion that you still have the chance to put on tefillin.
Even if it's daven Ma'ariv.
Now you could ask me, what about the bracha? That's the shayla now. Should he make a bracha or not?
Yeah, what's the whole point of putting tefillin?
Safek bracha lahakol. Maybe you shouldn't say a bracha, because if there's some machlokes here, and some shita is saying you should not be wearing tefillin. So when you're going to be saying Hashem's name, it's a doubt, a suffix whether you need to say Hashem's name, whether you could. Safek bracha is lahakol, not to say the bracha. If you hold like that, who says this way?
Say something about vlog we don't know. Not when or shita that says. You're saying I know what the shita is.
It's different. Only when you don't know. When you say that we know the halacha is, we pass in a certain way clearly. And
it's lazy, don't want bench in the sun, which you don't want to wash it, you want to take it off the dark.
So good point. When you are machriya, the halacha is one way. We don't say because of an opinion that says differently that now I can't say a bracha. But many times the halacha is undecided. It's not clear. You have two opinions, and each one brings a svar to the table, and we're sort of like left in the middle. Okay, so you say safek brachas lahakol. I want to point out something interesting here before we go further. It's like this. In the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he keeps on mentioning Seis HaKichavim. The beginning time of Tefillin is Mishi Yakir. The Siyum Hazman is Seis HaKichavim. Like in the beginning of this sif that in the beginning of Sif Daled, he says, what does that mean? It's a Gemara in Beya. Sunset does not mean our sunset. It means Hainu says when it's dark enough that you can see Stars. Huh?
Sorry.
Yeah. See, three in the Gimel Kechavim. Seisa Kechavim is later than Shkia. And we find this also earlier on in the beginning of Sebbeis. Iminichan Koiden Seisa Kechavim. So we find constantly other times in Sebbeis the idea of Seisa Kechavim. It's important to note that in the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, like many Gedolei Yisrael, published a Siddur with his nusach that he chose and picked out, and he also included many halachas in there in his Siddur. The halachas that were negeya when you're davening, you need halachas sometimes in your Siddur. Take a look what to do, and when sometimes Alter Rebbe in the Siddur, when he wrote those dinim in the Siddur, he changed from the way he wrote in the Shulchan Aruch. And the Siddur was written later. By the way, the Shulchan Aruch of Alter Rebbe was written earlier in the Siddur, but it was published later. Then there were manuscripts went around. The Alter Rebbe wrote his Shulchan Aruch already in the times of the Maggid. The Mezritcher Maggid instructed him to write it. And it says that it took him 2 years to write Orach Chaim. But his Siddur, but it was not published till after the Alter Rebbe was a Stalik. There was maybe the Hilchos Talmud Torah was published, it was like a Kuntris, but the whole Shulchan Aruch was not published, but only by his children, 3 years after his passing. Till then, people knew about it, but it was manuscript form. Those days, people copied the manuscripts. So everything wasn't only publication. But the Siddur Alter Rebbe was published in his lifetime. 10 years before he passed away, he published his Siddur. And in his Siddur, there actually is right now only one known copy of that first print of that Siddur. That first run of Siddurim was printed in the year Tuf Kuf Samach Gimel, which is 221 years ago. Shklov was printed in the city of Shklov. And there were only a few printing presses that are allowed in Russia. Those times they're allowed to publish. And it was that until a number of years ago, there was not known any copy in the world of this original Siddur. They had later prints, but the first print, there was no copy available. But they recently found one copy known in the world of this. Maybe more will turn up. Where did they find it? It was in the library in Russia, the Lubavitch Library in Russia. But the Lubavitch Library in Russia had 2 sections to it. There's one section that was known about already by the Rebbe. They discovered it like in the maybe the late 80s. The late 80s, I think in 1988, or the early 90s, they discovered the library in the Russian library in Moscow. There was a Russian State Library. It's called RSL, Russian State Library. They discovered the Rebbe Rashab's library. This was a library of the Rebbe Rashab. That the Rebbe Rashab, what happened was when the Russians, the communists took over. One of the things that the communists took over after the Bolshevik Revolution, 1917, was that private citizens are not allowed to own libraries. Dangerous material. Libraries have books.
Yeah,
they don't want people. Like today, we hear different countries. Now people don't read books anymore. Different countries stopped the internet. So you shouldn't have information. So then it was the books. You got to stop. So private citizens were not allowed to own factories and companies. It was all owned by the government. And then the government took control of it. And then the owner became a worker, a manager in the government's company. You get a salary. So they took away libraries. So they took away the Rebbe Rashab's library from him.
Complete and burn.
Actually, yeah, but I'm going to a little bit. I'm gonna just back up a second. Now I'm remembering more details. The Rebbe Shab, when the world during World War One, he ran away south. He ran south, closer to Ukraine, the border. He ran to Rostov, and he stayed there the last few years of his life, and he passed away in Rostov. He left Lubavitch, and that was the ending of 102 years of the Lubavitcher dynasty in the village of Lubavitch, starting from the Alter Rebbe's son, the Mittler Rebbe, going through to the Rebbe Rashab. So he fled from the Germans and he went to Rostov. When he went to Rostov, he couldn't take with him his library that he amassed. He had a huge collection. He couldn't take it with him. And also he had a lot of manuscripts and things. Certain ones he kept with him but most of it he couldn't keep with him. So he took it and sent it to Moscow, which is like a 6-hour train ride. You know, today's trains, it trains to Moscow, and the storage. You know, people are always selling storage. They had storage then. You were able to pay for having storage. So he sent it there for storage. Now, when he was there after World War One, there was the Bolshevik Revolution, and then they went and they confiscated that library that was in Moscow. Now, the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he became, after his father passed away just a short time later, 1920, the Frierdiker Rebbe tried very hard to get back the library. And he went in to say that, I have paperwork, that it's our library, and my father got permission to have the library, and the whole. And they said to him, yeah, we're going to give you this, and then the ending was, he wasn't allowed any access and he couldn't have the library. So the Frierdiker Rebbe realized he lost this library. So he started to make his own collection. And he collected and he bought off private collections from people and his own old Sfarim and manuscripts, and he started amassed his own huge library. So now we have the Rebbe Rashab's library, that's in Moscow, and we have the Frierdiker Rebbe's library. Now, the Frierdiker Rebbe, after he was arrested in 1927 and he was released, the famous Yud Beis Tammuz, he was arrested, Tesla Sivan is released close to a month later, Yud Beis Tammuz. He was basically, the Russians didn't want to keep him anymore. Usually they like to keep their citizens, right? You can tell us, but they like to keep the citizens in Russia.
Too much trouble.
But the Frierdiker Rebbe was not easy to handle. He wasn't listening, and he was getting away with it eventually because they had to release him because there was so much pressure, foreign pressure, and internal pressure. There was even a non-Jewish woman who was a human rights activist in Russia, a famous lady that she activated for his release, and it was in all the newspapers and the headlines about this grand rabbi, and there's a lot of pressure going on. So Russia had to let the Frierdiker Rebbe out. But they did. Frierdiker Rebbe was continuing whatever he did, further. So they told him basically, you have to leave. He didn't have a choice. You have to leave. So he said he's going to take his family with him and his library. They said, what do you need the library for? But he said, I'm not leaving unless I'm taking all my family, my daughters, as well as my future son-in-law, which is the Rebbe, because they were engaged, the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. I want him also out, and I need my library with you. So he left, and he went to Riga, Latvia, and then from there, he eventually went to Poland, and he founded a yeshiva in the outskirts of Warsaw, and he lived in Warsaw, and he had a yeshiva in Atwatsk, Poland. The war broke out, World War II now. World War II broke out during Tishrei time, beginning of Tishrei.
They go to Israel, that hole in the middle.
Yeah.
But he went back to Riga.
When he was in Riga, yeah.
Can't believe he went back.
Yeah. And when he went to America, he traveled.
Yeah, and he still came back.
Yeah, it wasn't at that time.
It wasn't.
It wasn't an issue. He wasn't in Soviet Union, and there wasn't Soviet Union then. He wasn't in Russia, and he wasn't in. It wasn't yet the World War. But when World War II started, and the bombs were in Warsaw, the Frierdiker Rebbe was stuck there. But the Chassidim in America use their channels of connections to get the Frierdiker Rebbe out. Remember, America was not yet part of the war.
Right.
So the United States is not part of the war. So there was a way through, there was a line of communication. Russia and the United States and Germany were on talking terms. So United States, so the Frierdiker Rebbe, the United States government called up certain Germany, the certain spy agencies there that we want to save Frierdiker Rebbe. And that's how the Frierdiker Rebbe was saved. There was a certain unit of the German intelligence, not the SS. They were going after the Jews, but another unit that was entrusted with getting the Frierdiker Rebbe underneath the nose of the SS. And they got the Frierdiker Rebbe out. There's been already books about it. Frierdiker was brought to Germany during the war. He was brought into Germany. He spent Shabbos in Germany. In the community in Berlin, they didn't yet start up with the Germans. So he was there when they invaded Poland.
39.
Yeah, but the Frierdiker Rebbe couldn't take his library with him. This is wartime. He had to escape with his family. So he took all his svarim and his manuscripts that he amassed, and he put it in the U.S. Embassy. He stored it, and he thought the U.S. Embassy was not part of the war. And in general, embassy is a what do they say? It's immune. It's
a saver.
Neutral. You're not allowed to go into it. But obviously, later on, the Germans didn't care about any of his rules. But he put it in there. He stored it in there. When the Germans got into the war, and they went into the U.S. Embassy, they took out the Frierdiker Rebbe's library from Poland, and they brought it back to Germany. Now they wanted to collect all archives and things. So we're looting.
How many books you talking?
They're looting about thousands of books, and he took it with him. Then the Russians came, and they conquered after the war. Conquered Germany, their side of Germany, right? The Berlin. They took the library back with them all the way back to Moscow. So it went from Poland to Germany back to Moscow. Now it's in Moscow. Now it was conquered by the military. So it's put into Russian military library. Different libraries. So now we have the Rebbe Rashab's library ended up being in the Russian state library. Because it ended up being there from the storage. It ended up going to the Russian state library. And in the late 80s, in the early 90s, the Rebbe sent, when the Russian Soviet Union collapsed, the Rebbe sent 4 shluchim to go special to Russia to go find the library of the Rebbe Rashab. They had no idea what happened to the Frierdiker library. It was in Poland, maybe it was burned. This library, they discovered it in the Russian state library, but it was the Rebbe Rashab's library. They never discovered the Frierdiker Rebbe's library till about 15, 20 years ago. After the Rebbe's Estalkus, they discovered in another library in Moscow, in the Russian military library, it had all the military archives that they had stolen from the various places during the war. That was the thing that came from Poland back there. They discovered it. In that library, they're both sitting in Russia now. In that library, where they discovered that Siddur, getting back to the beginning, the whole history, you have to go to Ma'ariv, they discovered that Siddur, the first print Siddur. So it was just recently discovered. And the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe, we have the Siddur, because I'm missing that first print. He doesn't say Tzeis HaKichavim. He says, don't put on tefillin after Shkia. So it's a change from the Shulchan Aruch to the Siddur, where he qualifies that the Siyum Hazman for tefillin is not Tzeis HaKichavim, but rather Shkia Sachavim. Obviously, b'diavad, if someone didn't, they should put on tefillin between Shkia and Tzeis, but not l'chatchila. They put on during that time. Now, by the way, the library in Russia decided now they're going to put up all their stuff online, and they're going to make copies and images of all their. So they put up. Well, Chabad is trying to get back the Svarim, and now they're trying to get back both libraries that they discovered, both libraries. But they put up online a PDF of that Siddur. So that's how we know that Siddur is that one copy in the world that we know today still exists from that 221-year-old Siddur of the Alter Rebbe's first print of his Siddur. It's sitting in that military library, but they posted online on their website photographs of it, so we can now view it, the actual Siddur. You can view that Siddur.
I heard that they don't want to let. They said we're gonna hold the library. We don't let it out of run.
Yeah.
Oh, nobody gets shared.
Yeah, they want to make sure they're watching
Is
it.
there a print? Like, did somebody?
You can go visit.
No, I'm talking about like in the book. Did somebody ever print?
Oh,
We daven from the Nusach Hari.
No.
it's the same nusach. It doesn't look the same because it was a different print. It was the first print. There was many prints later. Different printers changed the setup and things, but it's the
Same Nusach of this.
yeah, but it's the original one. It's the first print in the lifetime of the Alter Rebbe that was
He
published.
put halachas in. He put.
Yeah, we have also these halachas, but actually there were certain ones that we were not sure if maybe there were later printers put in certain instructions in the Siddur. Were they original or are they later on additions? So now we have the original, we could see what was added later. If there was any doubt, we know what came from the original from the Alter Rebbe. But it's very interesting, that's fascinating that the Rebbe wrote his Siddur, his Shulchan Aruch, way before his Siddur. 40 years earlier, he published, he wrote a Shulchan Aruch. But his Siddur was published before the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch was only published after his Estalkus. It was not published, but the Siddur he published B'Chayav in the city of Shklav and Tavkos Sam Gimel. This actual print is missing the cover. It's missing the cover, but there's a handwriting on it. You can see it on the PDF. The handwriting of the Frierdiker Rebbe, he wrote on his library, described the Sefer. So he wrote on it Shklav Tavkos Samach Gimel. This Siddur is from the city of Shklav, which is the first print of the Siddur. It was missing the first page. It got torn. It's missing the first page.
Wow.
But it's different than all the other later Siddurim. So this is it. You never know what shows up. Things appear in different libraries around the world. You never know where things are. There are many Rishonim and Achronim which are discovered in various libraries around. And you don't know, there's things sitting in Italy in a local library in a town somewhere where a Chacham lived. And the manuscripts ended up there, and it's just sitting there. And they're waiting for someone to be goyelit, to come and publish the.
That's very interesting.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah, people that are into it. It's a special field. People that are into. I know a collector. Every Yom Tov he has to have something new for Yom Tov. Every Yom Tov, a new sefer, a new letter, a new manuscript. It's a big taiva they have. It's an expensive taiva, but they're busy always collecting and shredding. It's a whole world.
That's a good time.
If you could afford it, they could afford it. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yes, I'll be